What's up gamers, welcome back to Vendor Gaming, your weekly Switch 2 hacking recap. We are officially in week 3 and things are getting real. A quick recap of the last 2 weeks. Within 24 hours of launch, a researcher showed a userland ROP exploit on Switch 2, rendering custom graphics on screen. This was not a full jailbreak, no kernel or root access, but it proved the console isn't impenetrable. Then we had the MIG flashcart rumors. The MIG team claimed their flashcart could run Switch 1 games on Switch 2, and some demo videos showed a game menu booting. However, no real gameplay was confirmed and skepticism was high. Within 12 days, Nintendo started banning consoles that had used the MIG flashcart, even if users only loaded their own game dumps. In short, the MIG Switch seems to work on the Switch 2, but you're probably gonna get banned. Then, modders found a wild Zelda Tears of the Kingdom trick on Switch 2. By using modded Switch 1 saves to generate custom auto-build QR codes, players on an unmodded Switch 2 could spawn crazy stuff in TOTK. I mean, it's a niche exploit, but it doesn't require hacking the Switch 2 itself. Nintendo hasn't patched this yet, so TOTK players having fun right now. Transferring modded save files from a hacked Switch 1 to Switch 2 works fine. For example, custom Zelda save edits, infinite health items, etc. carry over with no bans or issues reported. Switch 2 just sees it as a normal save. Hardware mods begin. Even without any console jailbreak, hardware tinkerers jumped in. The big one is storage modes. Since the Switch 2 uses microSD Express with PCIe interface, modders began building adapters to use NVMe SSDs for storage. By week 2, multiple groups were designing open source microSD to M.2 NVMe adapters. We even saw prototypes on forums by day 10. These promise faster and cheaper storage upgrades. A quick PSA repeated from last week. If you plan to hack your Switch 2 in the future, insert a microSD Express card at least once now to force the one-time system update. The first time you insert an SD Express, the console will auto-update to the latest firmware. Do it early so you aren't caught off guard later. Also, avoiding using suspicious hardware or services online like MEGAPACKAGE is recommended, unless you are okay with Nintendo swinging the ban hammer, but it will eventually lock your system down from updating, which will take away the ability to play upcoming games such as Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now, coming to week 3 developments. One dedicated hardware developer in the community pulled off a big feat this week, mapping out the Switch 2's main processor in extreme detail and even coaxing a reaction out of it. But what was accomplished? Full sock pinout. The console's main chip has 441 pins and he identified every single one and even labeled each of those pins. Power, data lines, grounds, interface connections, everything. Now we have a complete blueprint of how the brain of the Switch 2 is connecting to the system. Super technical, very useful. With the pinout known, he triggered an early boot response from the chip. By toggling a debug related pin, he got the system to start its boot sequence. That means the chip responded as if powering on normally. A blink of life. Important, this didn't run custom firmware or Linux. It simply showed the chip starting its routine before shutting off. Still, it proves early access is possible. Hardware hackers can now probe and manipulate specific pins to see how the system reacts. With this map, researchers can hunt for hardware exploits, like debug ports, test pads or factory boot modes. It's how many consoles in the past were hacked. It also helps with future mode chips design. If someone wants to inject code or signals, they now know exactly where to wire in. No exploits yet, but this kind of research often leads to breakthroughs later. The door isn't unlocked, but now we have a detailed keyhole to peek through. Out of respect for the developer who did this work, who also prefers to stay out of the spotlight, I am not showing any of his diagrams or naming names here. The accomplishment speaks for itself, and we're also thankful to have that info public for the community. NVMe SSD mod closer than ever. A custom board lets a Switch 2 use an NVMe drive via the microSD Express slot. This week saw real progress in SSD adapter projects. It's not just theory anymore. We have open schematics and working prototypes. Timon's adapter. Timon designed 2 adapter boards, one to connect M.2 SSDs, another to sniff SD slot signals. He's refining the PCB now to improve connection stability. While not released yet, his GitHub is active and collaborative. Expect a working SSD on Switch 2 soon. Another team released a full open source design, schematics, PCB layouts and even a working prototype. Their boards map the microSD Express slot to a standard NVMe SSD socket. No protocol conversation is needed. The Switch 2 natively speaks NVMe. While it's mostly a direct connection, the Switch expects a handshake when a card is inserted, so a microcontroller or FPGA is likely needed to simulate that interaction. But NVMe has already planned for this in the roadmap. Good job. If successful, you will be able to use cheap NVMe SSDs over expensive microSD express cards. Once the handshake logic is finalized, these adapters could show up fast, especially with open source designs. Switch to Brew Wiki. A brand new homebrew wiki has launched. It's already filling up with hardware info, firmware details and documentations. A great resource for newcomers and devs alike. And even the Switch Tools team posted a helpful summary of everything inside the Switch 2 Brew Wiki. Now to something completely new. Developer OctoCling made a tool that lets you use your new Switch 2 Joy-Con as a virtual Xbox 360 controller on Windows. Great for anyone who wants to use their Joy-Con for PC gaming. Oh man. It's incredible that we're only at week 3 and we have so many things already. I mean, so much progress in so many different aspects. It's incredible. A full SOC pinout, early boot signal triggered, SSD adapter prototypes working, unmodded TOTK, QR glitches, wiki tools and dev supports all growing fast. That said, there is no jailbreak or custom firmware available on the Switch 2, which is kinda obvious, given the time when the Switch 2 was released, right? But we're getting there, layer by layer, and it's definitely a very interesting thing to follow everything. I will keep bringing you accurate, respectful updates every week. No drama, just facts. Thank you for everyone in the community who's sharing works, and to you for tuning in and supporting real news over hype. If this video helped you to stay in the loop, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified when the next video is coming out. Thanks for watching, stay safe, don't get banned, don't forget to smile. My name is Yu, I hope I'll see you in the next video. Peace.